Hi, this is Professor Wallman talking about Guillaume de Machaut's Mass for Notre Dame, or the Notre Dame Mass, La Messe de Notre Dame. I can't speak a word of French, so don't laugh. Or go ahead and laugh, it's fine. I can't hear you and I will never know, so laugh all you want. Um, I will tell you a little bit about Guillaume de Machaut. So he's really considered to be one of the most important composers of the 14th century in Europe. There were tons of composers all over the world, but Machaut, and we refer to him as his last name was probably the region where he was from. He was from a area of France that had a town nearby called Machaut in it, and so we refer to him as William from Machaut. But anyway, he was fairly well known. He was a prominent composer and also a poet, and he traveled around he was affiliated both with the court and with the church. So he was religious. He worked for a clerk that was affiliated with the local court. So he had some connections to royalty. He knew how to write music down. He knew he was musically literate, and he retired after working for royalty. He actually survived the Black Death at the time, so he had a pretty remarkable life. And for the Middle Ages, he lived a pretty long time. 77 years is no mean feat at a time when there is no medicine, where your teeth probably would have completely rotted out of your head by the time you were 25 years old because there was no toothpaste. Could have gotten an infection at any time and died. But he didn't. He lived very well and for a long time, and he beat the odds, and wrote a lot of music that was both secular and sacred. And the piece that I am having you listen to, and don't freak out, I see that you're probably looking at this and saying, oh, it's 28 minutes long. You can listen to it if you find it beautiful, but we only are going to listen to a couple of minutes of it, probably just the Kyrie section. Now, this piece of music is written in the 1300s, 1360s, it's estimated, and it is remarkable because it is the very, very first entire mass that has been put to music, written as one big, long musical piece by a single person. There were plenty of people that were setting parts of the Mass. The Mass has a particular order. If you're Catholic, you know this. I am not Catholic, but the Mass it is performed in a particular order. When Mass is done, there's always there are 5 sections of it, and it's done in a particular time. Guillaume was one of the first people to sit down and write an entire piece of music that set all 5 sections of the Mass into one long piece of music. And it survives. It's, from the 1300s. So it's a very old piece of music, and it's fairly remarkable that somebody that did this such a long time ago, that we still have the evidence of it. And we also have all the music intact. Now, what has happened in the church by this point is that whereas there was plenty of Gregorian chant, and Gregorian chant is by definition monophonic chant music, right? So we listened to that piece by Hildegard, and she wrote many, many such pieces, and lots of other composers who were writing such pieces. They were all monophonic. They were all, there wasn't really much of a sense of pulse to them. Whether there were at the time or not, we will never know because notation didn't tell us anything about that. But by the later part of the medieval era, Roman Catholicism had taken off so much and had become so embraced and popular across Western Europe that there were enormous cathedrals that were starting to be built in big cities. So, for example, the Cathedral of Notre Dame in the middle of Paris, right, is this beautiful, soaring medieval cathedral that was built to honor this religion, but also to attract people that would want to walk into the cathedral and sit down and listen. So after a while, you go for a couple of 100 years of just monophonic chant music, and after a while, certainly people in the cities and people who have started to sort of come to church, come to these big cathedrals, started wanting a little bit more. And the cathedrals are quite beautiful. And so a number of different composers started trying to make the music of the church service as beautiful and spectacular and ornate as the surroundings had become, certainly in these big cities and certainly in these increasingly gorgeous cathedrals that were being built during the Middle Ages. So Guillaume de Machaut's Mass is remarkable not only because it's this lengthy piece of music that survives, but it also is remarkable because it reflects some of the new writing styles, the new musical styles that were being introduced at the time. And one of the most important musical styles that came in the later Middle Ages is polyphony, right? So we get the introduction of organum. Organum just means, it's just a word that means early polyphony for the Roman Catholic Church. But Machaut was somebody that really developed that. And so what we're going to be listening to is polyphony, a polyphonic texture, as opposed to just the plain meterless monophonic texture that we've been listening to since Hildegard, for a couple of hundred years at this point. So here, all of a sudden, we have this much richer, fatter, more ornate sound to the music. So let's take a listen to just a little bit of the Mass of Notre Dame. We'll listen to the Kyrie section, which is the first section. And you'll notice that it's immediately just much more ornate sounding. Lots of harmony. And what you'll start to notice is that the voices start going off in all sorts of different directions. You notice this, right? Now, these are all male singers. In case you're wondering, the highest voice is just a man singing up in like a falsetto range. But he's singing a completely different melody than the men singing in the lower ranges, right? The melodies are all competing. As they sing in different melodies, they also are singing with a more of a sense of meter. It's really not super pronounced. I would say that that's actually not true. At least you can hear do, 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 do. Well, maybe not the strongest pulse, but it feels a little bit more rhythmically together than the early meandering music by Hildegard. If you're singing in unison, a lot of people are singing in unison, or you're just singing a solo, you don't need to worry as much about meter, about rushing ahead a little bit or rushing behind. You can always catch up. Everybody's singing exactly the same thing. As soon as you start singing in this very ornate, competing melodies, you really have to be in sync with one another. Do you hear that? Because if not, you're going to get lost, and it's going to not sound very good. Right? You need to keep focused. And so I would say that, well, maybe we're not going to jump up and dance to this in a really metered kind of way. We're not yet there in the Middle Ages. We are starting to feel a little bit more of a sense that this is a musical piece and not just somebody kind of singing a prayer. Now again, this is still, voices are not mixed. It's only men singing. They used boys or men with higher voices for the top parts, but they did not mix voices together. That would have not been acceptable in the church at the time. And there are, again, no instruments. This is a cappella. We're still in the Kyrie section. I think the entire Mass is an hour. We're certainly not going to go that long, but you can hear that it's a richer sound. It needs to fill a cathedral. Hildegard and her fellow nuns are likely performing for themselves, right? They're just making music for the love of God. They're not doing it for an audience. This is still incredibly importantly, deeply holy music. It's religious, but there's a little bit more of a sense of an audience because this is Paris. This is a city. This is a growing city at a time when population is growing. You notice how busy it is and how much more ornate it becomes. And you continue to notice that the lower registers are singing a different melody than the upper registers, right? So they're singing the same words, but they're kind of competing in terms of the lines that they're singing. Okay. I think that that's enough. You are certainly welcome to listen to the rest of this recording. It is in the other folder without my voice over it. So if you'd like to listen to it in the background or while you're studying or something, or if you enjoy it, I hope that you do, go over there and you can listen to it without my voice. But anyway, that is Machaut from the 1300s, later Middle Ages, with some polyphonic textured music for the Roman Catholic Church during the Middle Ages. Thanks.